talk about something you mentioned in a different video when you were talking about ESPN, and you were kind of, on this rant against ESPN. And I think is a problem in the entire basketball media specifically. I want to talk about basketball media a bit today because you have various problems with it, I think. One is the ex-players in the media, by and large, are awful. There's such a big difference. If you watch the NFL and you watch, the Fox kind of halftime or whatever, you see, who's there? Tony Gonzalez, Michael Strahan. Like, if you listen to them talk and they talk about the players today, Tony Gonzalez is like, oh, Travis Kelce, he's awesome. Someone like Michael Strahan's like, I don't know, some linebacker. He's like, oh, this guy's awesome. Like, he's really doing his stuff. And you don't find that in the NBA media, because in the NBA media, they live in this world where the 1990s was the absolute peak of basketball, and everything since then is completely invalid, and it ruins it, I think.
Do you think? I mean, just speaking to the players part of it, do you think that probably has something a little bit more to do with longevity in the sport? Like, if you're going to be an NBA commentator, you've probably been in the league since the early 2000s, and so therefore, like, players like Kobe, but you revere players like Kobe and Shaq and all of them, but also you kind of remember the tail end of Michael Jordan's career. Whereas
still, you don't hear Terry Bradshaw going like, oh, it's such it's not the same game, like, so much. Like, okay, there's a little bit like, oh, you can't touch the quarterback, but it's no way. If you listen to, Charles Barkley or Shaq, which I don't, because they're both idiots, like, you would think it was like civil war every night on the court. Like, Shaq used to coast 60% of the season. This is why Kobe hated him.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. There's something about, it's almost like, I guess in football, in football, like, it's less so that the players become coaches, and I guess in the NBA, like, the smartest minds end up, look at Steve Nash. Like, Steve Nash would probably be a very insightful commentator, probably be somebody that we could relate, that could relate to the casual fan and could explain the game a little bit in a way that, like, we can enjoy. I know we've had discussions about the old man and the three, but, like, one of the things I like about JJ Redick is that, like, he is somebody that can talk about his faults, but then he can also talk about, he breaks things down to a casual NBA fan, or even somebody that likes the NBA a little bit more. He's like, there's only like 5 things that, we do in the NBA, and these are the 5 things. So, like, we all kind of know what's going to happen. And then there's certain players that just do this well or do this well. And, like, that's very relatable. Whereas, like, Jalen Rose is just like, he's just trying to get the talking point.
Well, my main kind of area of contention is inside the NBA, because it needs to go. It just needs to go, because these guys, they don't put in any effort. They don't even watch the games. I mean, at the start of the season, Shaq didn't even know who Christian Woods was for the Rockets. Like, I don't watch every game of basketball. I watch about 3 hours a week.
Yeah, but you got to know him.
Even I know who he is, right? Yeah. So, like, Shaq doesn't know who he is, and he makes God knows how much money, like, being the main pundit on TNT.
The center and a center, and you gotta know that there's a great video out of, like, every time Paul Pierce said something stupid on Inside the NBA, where it's just like, would you take yourself or Dwayne Wade? And, like, then they asked him for his reasoning, which wing, who would you take between you and D Wade, and why? And he's
that's fairly close, though.
Yeah, but his reasoning was, if
I'd have played with LeBron when I was 25, I think.
I was always a winner, and it wasn't until he got help that he won something. And Jalen Rose just looks at him and he goes, "You didn't win until you had Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen."
That is the most milked NBA championship of all time, the 2008 Celtics. They talk about it like it's the 72 Dolphins or something like.
No, they really do. Like, and it's for, like, 3 specialists in sort of failure, right?
And
I love Ray Allen, but, he was a a 2-way combo guard type of deal coming out of I think it was UConn that he came out of, and then he had to turn into a 3-point specialist. Like, Paul Pierce, like, he was supposed to be this, that, lockdown defender. Didn't win anything. Kevin Garnett was supposed to be the second coming. Everybody reveres Kevin Garnett. He wasn't anything until the 3 of them got together and, had to put their differences aside in order, and they got playoff Rondo as well added to that. Like, there's, definitely an overhyped team for sure. But yeah, getting back to the point of like the analysis. So here's my theory on it, and I sort of touched on this in my own rant video. There's certain players that are more marketable, right? Obviously, LeBron is more marketable. Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and they can be marketable for different reasons. Like, it can be marketable for the negativity, sort of like Trump is very marketable. Like, there's been no president ever that's been debated as much as Trump. Same way with Kyrie Irving. Somebody like Brad Beal right now, right? Very, very marketable because you get to see him wear
that Wizards run. Wizards run to the playoffs has started, like I predicted.
Right? Russell Westbrook, right? Because of his highs and his lows. Like, we know, like, which players are good and can be successful, but ESPN thinks they know which players we want to watch. And so my point in that video was we got to watch a highlight of a Hawks-Nets game, and all the highlights were Nets highlights. And the game went into overtime, and the Nets only won by 4 points. So, like, why do you think I care only about Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving, when in reality what I care about is just watching the highlights of the fucking game? Mm-hmm. That's it. It used to be that, like, whether it was Stuart Scott or whether it was, Scott Van Pelt or whoever was sitting on the ESPN desk, they would get the packet of highlights, it would show the game, and then they'd sprinkle in a couple of, like, silly little catchphrases here or there. Mm-hmm. Whereas now it's a bunch of old people. It's all the same people trying to appeal to us, despite the fact that they're now 60 and we're
boomers. Just retire.
Yeah, we're now
across the whole of industry.
Yeah, we should just wipe them all out, restart from the top, right? Like, I love, and it doesn't happen that often, but I love watching like a Sky Sports, right? Because they just show the highlights. Like, it's a constant just like highlight thing, and then like they'll go back to the studio and maybe they'll talk about it.
Well, like, the NBA has always been a bit more star driven, and I get that, especially at the moment, this experiment in Brooklyn, it's exciting and people want to see how it's going to work. But the problem I have is, especially, I want to go back to inside the NBA because I'm like, who are you targeting? Because everyone who actually likes basketball and wants to kind of hear something hates it. Everybody who basically like listens to a basketball podcast once a week and like that level, they hate it because it's just these clowns doing no research and not even kind of working anything out or explaining anything.
Oftentimes they don't even answer the questions that are asked.
Is it helping the casual fan? How many people are just stumbling upon it now?
It's interesting too, because 99% of the time it's a female presenter with 2 to 3 African-American guys. Right. And so like, you almost think like this is ESPN's chance for a diversity show.
I'll tell you what, Stephen A. Smith must sleep at ESPN. He is there. He's on it all the time.
All the time.
But another thing we find is because we've got all these talk shows every day, especially in basketball, I think I heard something the other day, like, I watched a clip of Skip and Shannon on YouTube, and they were talking. I mean, it's the worst. I mean, look, the Lakers beat the Celtics the other night, and LeBron missed a 3 with like 40 seconds left in the game, and did this affect his legacy? Like, what? I mean, he's a 4-time NBA champion. On a Wednesday night in January, like, no, it didn't affect his legacy.
It's funny because, like, I'm trying to, like, basketball is for me by far the worst, and I'm just trying to, like, conceptualize why. Because, like, in the NFL, right, like, the NFL is such a short season that everything gets amplified. Maybe the onus is on the games and not on the players because it's such a short season. But maybe because the NBA is played over the winter, and really for a solid 2 to 3 month period, it's pretty much the only thing on TV. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's the reason why. But there's no other sport where, like, baseball, you don't question a pitcher because he's lost 2 games in a row. right? You don't question their legacy. You might question the season, like, oh, is I'm going to throw a name out, and you probably don't know, but is Jacob deGrom really the best pitcher in baseball? He's just had 2 losses, and he's got a 5.35 ERA in his last 2 starts. Like, is he the best pitcher in baseball, or is it somebody else? And then he wins his next start, and then you forget about it. And it's also an 162-game season, so all these storylines you forget by the end of the year.
Another thing you find with basketball is there seems to be this big city bias. I don't hear anybody saying that Patrick Mahomes needs to leave Kansas City because it's too small of a
True,
whereas you hear that all the time in basketball.
I think it's a little bit different though, like probably because of the amount of games. Like Kansas City has the world record for the loudest stadium.
Right.
So like they've got really rabid fans, right?
No, he's just an example, but like
No, I know exactly what you're saying. But like nobody says anything about Giannis leaving Milwaukee.
They did. Big time
they
did.
Said he was going to, but nobody said he had to in order to secure his legacy. If anything,
I don't know. I think you could find some Jalen Rose character saying that.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I guess it's probably I don't watch enough punditry on basketball because it's just so goddamn awful that like I just don't follow along in the same sort of way. I think for football, there's a cap in basketball as well. There's a high enough cap, and all the teams have enough money. I think, in order to afford everybody. Whereas in basketball, like you really have to be driving fans to every single game, right? Yeah. Like Milwaukee right now has a little bit of a run for 3 years. Where
how much is a season ticket? How much would a season ticket at the Nets cost?
Oh, that I have no earthly idea. I've only ever been to one basketball game in my life, and it was when I was much younger. Like the Knicks are like astronomical still.
Hey, Randall's making the All-Star team.
OJ Barrett really should be the this new guy quickly, I think. But yeah, it costs a lot of money to go to a game. And
you got to buy the finger, the inflatable,
Yeah, you got to buy the finger, right? And it costs a lot of money once you're there to buy stuff. And there's 41 home games, and it's not the same atmosphere as a football game. It's not the same atmosphere as a baseball game. You go to this in the summertime. It's like going to a baseball game. You might find baseball really, really, really boring. Going to a baseball game, you don't have to like baseball to do it.
It's like going to a cricket game. You sit there and drink beer.
You drink. You enjoy the fans around you. You can have friendly banter with people, all the rest of it. Going to a basketball game, you're inside. It's the middle of winter. You just come from the cold. You're going into a nice, whatever. You're going to watch this game, and then you're going to go home, and you're going to be miserable. And there's also 41 games at home, and you got to drive fans to all of them. So, I understand the big city I understand, driving the players to the big city. You got to get a young guy, and you got to have the perfect circumstances to have Giannis stay in Milwaukee, and that being COVID.
I think one of the most shocking things I saw when I went to MetLife to watch Giants Cowboys was loads of people. I saw at least 5 people in there with as they were called, the Washington Redskins, jerseys on. You try and go to Anfield when Liverpool are playing Man United in a Chelsea shirt.
Right.
I don't think you'd leave there alive.
It's so funny. You go to a Mets game, right? And you got some people in New York Giants jerseys. You got a couple of people in San Francisco Giants jerseys. I just literally went with the Giants parallel there. They're not even playing the Giants. Why are you? So I just picked out what I had. It's it's more of an atmosphere, sort of community type of thing.
Yeah.
Basketball. It's tough and basketball.
Well, that's one of the cool things. If you got to come when they start again, you're going to have to come over to London to watch one of the NFL London games. I've been to a few of them, and it's cool because it's that chance for European fans to go to a game.
Right.
So you see loads of Germans. I took the Eurostar back to Paris immediately after it. Saw loads of people on the train going back to Paris as well. And it's cool because you see just every jersey when you're there. Right.
Yeah, no, I would imagine it'd be fun, to go and watch it elsewhere. I hear the ones in Mexico City have been amazing as well.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And all the rest of it. Like, if you look, who do they say the best fans are in basketball? Toronto. Not even
yeah.
team,
Yeah, true.
right? Not even the American team, right? And I guess.
I mean, the Knicks. They're still going. I mean, that's commitment.
I think their season tickets are still sold out like every year. But also,
this is why Dolan will never leave.
Oh yeah. Dolan's never gonna leave. It's a profitable industry for him for sure, and he owns the fucking building. Like, forget about it. But
and it's like slap bang in the center. It's maybe even the center point of Manhattan.
More or less, yeah. But give or take a block or two here or there, it's pretty much right in the middle. And like, if you're coming from anywhere else out of state, then like
you come out of Penn Station, you're there.
Yeah, you take a train there. But like, it's funny because like you looked at like the Spurs, they were never covered really like when they were good either. Like they were covered in like, the Spurs are going to be the Spurs type of thing. But anytime any other team in the NBA went on like a mini run, they'd be like, oh, look at the Mavericks, or oh, look at the Cavaliers with LeBron James, and then like LeBron James would be covered. So it is really star driven, and like I don't think they have the right personalities for it, and the right personalities for it, I mean, I think end up going into coaching.
I think what you need to do is, and I think one of the problems with someone like Shaq is just he's not hungry enough to do a good job because he's worth like $1 billion, right? And he's got like 1 million businesses. So like he just has no motivation to do it. But actually, some of the people are okay. Like when you see that lower level, someone like a Richard Jefferson, he's pretty good. He's on some podcasts, right? So like I think you actually need that lower level one because if you get the high ones, they're just not motivated.
The best, well, those like I think as well, like Steve Nash, like MVP, multiple time MVP or whatever else, but like. And I guess Hall of Famer, so I guess he's a bad example. But like, in baseball, you have a tendency to have like a manager who was a player, and like you'll be like, oh, I remember him, but he's never the Hall of Famer.
Yeah, but like, name one good names anybody who was a Hall of Fame player, and then a good basketball coach aside from Larry Bird.
I mean, I would have to think Isaiah Thomas, baby.
Oh yeah, you turn the Knicks around.
I'd have to give that some more thought, but like, there's definitely like what I'm talking about is like Pat Riley and Phil Jackson, not the best basketball players, excellent head coaches, would have been great commentators, right? Yeah. They probably would have been excellent commentators. Now they're way too far above it. But if you ever watch a game that's the commentators are Jeff Van Gundy and Mike Jackson, that's such a joy to watch. It's just so nice. Like, Jeff's got this like old school sort of type of thing, but also at the same time, like,
you never listened to the Players Only. Wasn't it a couple of years ago they did the Players Only? It was awful.
There was a couple of them that I really enjoyed, a couple of them that I thought were really awful. But the best part about like Jeff Van Gundy is he comes up with these absolutely wild things where like, I can't even think about, he's like, yeah, I can't think about any of them right now, but like he'll say an outlandish thing and Mike Jackson will be like, do you really think that? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. I think we should bring it up to the rules committee. It's that'll never be a rule. But then you think about it and you go, he makes a really good point. Mm-hmm. He does make a really good point. And then there's Mark Jackson, who's like along for the ride, but also was a very successful NBA head coach as well and a good NBA player. Right, so like you can kind of like respect what he has to say, and Jeff's been in the game for so long.
Yeah, true. I think this is part of we're going to have to do a few videos on this to get through this, but it's an interesting subject. Viewers, we'll be back next time with some more information about this. Take care.
More Frank talk, huh? You liked that, didn't you?
I like it. Bye, everybody.